Hey, it's Steve Jolly, and today on the Home Buying Skills channel, we're going to talk about should you buy a home or a condo and which one is the best value. Are you ready to get started? Let's get to business. So the first thing we want to explore is what is the difference between a single family home, a townhome, and a condo. There are legal definitions that you need to understand that make these types of properties different, and it's in ways that's very important to you. So let's learn what those are. You're going to want to know that the difference between a single family home and a townhome and a condo vary by location. It's usually by the state. So your state has specific things that are required for a condo and for a townhome and for a single family home. Also, depending on whether it's a townhome, a condo, or a single family home, the rights that you have are different from each of those units. So you're going to want to understand exactly what your rights are when you're purchasing a property and if they fit the needs that you're looking for. One of the biggest differences between a townhome and a single family home and a condo is who owns the land under the structure that you're living in. And if it's a single family home, most of the time you own the land under your home. And that's pretty easy and that's pretty simple to understand. Now in a condo, especially if it's in a high rise, there really is no land under your structure. So in a condo, in most cases, all of the condo owners own the land in common. They are tenants in common of owning all of the land that the condo sits on. And with a townhome, it's a little bit different. It's kind of a mixture between a single family home and a condo. In a townhome, in most cases, you own the land directly under the structure. And the land surrounding the structure, you may own that outright or you may own that in common with the owners of the other townhomes in your development. So as you can see, each one of these are different. Now let's talk about that townhome situation where there's property that's held in common with you and your neighbors. So there's going to be who owns it, but there's also going to be who owns the rights to use that. So the way that it's set up is that common land might have rights that everybody that owns the condos can use that land, or you may have a private and exclusive right to use that land only. Even though it's owned by everybody, you might have an exclusive right to use that property, and you'll see that really common in townhomes. So I know this sounds confusing, but what you need to do is when you're looking at property, you need to try to identify what type of property it is, and then try to identify how the ownership is set up and who owns what, because that is so important to the needs you have going forward, especially if you want to put up a fence, if you want to add on to the home, if you want to do anything to the home, you really need to understand what property you own, what land that you own, and how that's going to work for you and your needs. Another thing you want to consider when deciding whether to buy or sell is what is the use, what is the purpose for buying this property? Are you going to use it personally? Are you going to be a homeowner and occupy the property? Or are you going to lease it to a tenant? And depending on what you're going to do with the property, depends on what type of property you're going to buy. And if you plan on leasing it, is it going to be a short-term lease or is it going to be a long-term lease? Because there may be rules or laws in your area that prevent you from leasing short-term or prevent you from leasing long-term, depending on the rules and bylaws of codes in your area or even your HOA. So you need to think of all these factors when it comes time to decide whether you want to purchase a condo or a home. Now you want to consider all these factors when you finally decide whether you're going to purchase a condo or a home, because they're all important. And a good realtor, an expert realtor, can walk you through that process and help you make the best decision possible. Also, another important factor when deciding whether to buy a condo or a home is the location that you're targeting. If you're targeting a location where homes are very expensive, it may force you into buying a condo because that's all you can afford. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that may lead you to a decision, if I buy a house, I'm going to buy it in this area, or if I buy a condo, I'm going to do it in this area. Now, you might prefer the area that you want to buy a condo, but you might prefer to live in a home. And then you have to weigh out those factors individually and see what makes the most sense for you. Does the location make the most sense for you, or having that home make more sense for you? Having that single family home. Which of those two things makes the most sense for you? And that can help you make your decision. Another thing to consider is, what do you value being close to over the next 5 years? If you want to be close to your work so your commute time is short, then you may want to factor in buying whatever you can afford in a location that's close to work. Or if you want to be by shopping or retail or certain areas or certain entertainment districts, all those things factor in to your location. And then once you narrow that location down, then that kind of helps you decide whether you want to buy a home or you want to buy a condo in that area. And I think if you can't buy a home in the area that you want, I think it's smarter to buy a condo, because you're still generating appreciation, you're still creating wealth, you're building generational wealth, and that'll put you in a stronger position when it comes time to buy that home in the area that you want. So I think you'll be in a stronger position coming from a homeowner, even if it's a condo owner versus a renter. Another factor you want to consider when you're deciding whether you want to buy a home or a condo is how much money you want to spend. And that's usually the biggest deciding factor between the two. Is homes are usually more expensive than condos. Homes typically appreciate a little bit more than condos, but that's not always true, and that really depends on the area that you live in. So whatever advice you're given, you want to make sure that it works in the area that you're going to be in, because every area is different. Every area appreciates differently. People look for different properties in different areas. So it's most important for you to look into this and find out what makes the best sense for you. And since homes are more expensive, one of the things you're going to have to consider is the extra expense and cost of purchasing a home worth it as compared to purchasing a condo? You might be able to save for a little bit more money. You might be able to save for retirement quicker. You might be able to meet your goals quicker if you're in a condo. So those are all things you're going to need to consider. Is that extra money worth it to you? And can you use that extra money from buying a condo to meet your goals faster? Now, one question people always have is, what is the best value? Is it better to live in a condo or is it better to live in a home? Now, a lot of people think living in a condo is cheaper than living in a home. In many ways it is, because it is less costly. But that doesn't factor in all the costs that you have of living in a home versus living in a condo. And one of the factors that plays into that is your HOA fee. And if you live in an older condo, especially a building that's 30 years old or older, those HOA fees can get exorbitant because the cost to maintain the property is so expensive. So older condos cost more to maintain, they cost more to renovate, they cost more to keep it up the way it should be. And so therefore your HOA fees are going to be higher versus in a newer building. So keep that in mind. Those HOA fees for condos, and even some for townhomes, are usually more expensive than they are for homes. And so when you're looking at the total cost, make sure you factor in what the HOA costs you each and every month. Another problem people have with condos is the condo association or the homeowners association doesn't always keep up with repairs and maintenance. And their costs might be low right now because they haven't been maintaining the property like they should. And their costs might skyrocket in the near future because they're going to have to play catch up on those maintenance repairs. And so it's going to cost them extra money down the road. And you want to know that going into it. You want to know if they have been maintaining the condo to the right standards up front before you buy into it. So if you're thinking about buying a condo, really look into the minutes of the condo, look into their financials, look into what they're planning to do in the near future, and look into the maintenance of the building. Is it what it's expected? Is it what you expect? And if it's not, it's probably going to cost you more money in the long run. Another problem with condos is they can't always be financed using traditional conventional means. And that's because maybe the number of investors in a building has gotten to a point which makes it where lenders don't want to loan any more conventional money towards that. Now, they'll definitely loan unconventional money, but that's going to come at you at a higher cost. So some condo buildings, especially if they have 50% or higher ownership by investors or by people that are not owner occupants, those fees can be more expensive and they can be harder to sell because people can't get traditional financing for that type of unit. So keep that in mind when you're building and buying into a condo complex. Now, another question to consider when you're trying to decide whether you should buy a condo or a home is which one is going to appreciate more. In the past, most people thought homes appreciated more than condos, but that is not always the case. It really depends on the area that you're going to live in. And in Nashville, for many years, homes appreciated at a higher rate than condos, but that's changing. And in fact, condo sales were more popular in Nashville. They grew as a higher percentage versus single family homes last year. The 2021 home appreciation rate for homes, for single family homes in the Nashville area was 26.7%. That was huge, and we probably aren't going to expect to see that every year. Now, the same number for condos in 2021 was 22%. So as you can see, in Nashville, where in the past homes always appreciated significantly more than condos, condos are starting to catch up, starting to appreciate like homes, and people are starting to look at that as a viable alternative to living in a home. Another thing to consider when choosing between buying a home and a condo is maintenance and repair costs. Now, we know in a single family home and in most townhomes, the seller are responsible for almost all of the repairs. And so in those situations, it is going to be more expensive for maintenance repairs on a homeowner than it is going to be on a condo owner. Now, and with condos and with some townhomes, those maintenance and repairs are built in to the price of your HOA fees. But that usually just includes the maintenance and repairs on the exterior of your home. That doesn't always include the maintenance and repairs on the interior home. And there may be a few other things like the HVAC or the balcony that the buyer may be responsible for and the HVAC is not. So you want to understand what you're responsible for through that buying process to make sure you factor that into your decision. Another factor that's important to people is privacy. There is much more privacy in a single family home than there is in a condo. You know, most of the time with single family homes, you're not sharing walls with people. You have a little bit more land surrounding your home, so you have more privacy. With condos, there's much fewer privacy. You have to walk through common areas, you have to walk through common garages. If privacy is important to you, you may want to consider a single family home versus a condo. Another thing to consider when buying a home versus buying a condo is the HOA fees. Now, all condos have HOA fees, especially in a state like Tennessee, but not all homes have HOA fees. So that is an additional cost, and usually HOA fees go to pay for exterior maintenance or common areas maintenance, street lights, trash pickup, things like that. So that is just going to be an additional cost that you're going to have to pay on a condo versus a home. So you have to decide whether you want to live in an HOA and if you're not. And if you don't want to live in an HOA, you may want to consider a home, a single family home without an HOA, because there will be fewer rules that you have to agree and live on. And here are some of those rules and how they can affect you. One of the rules your HOA may have is you may not be able to lease, or you may have restrictions on leasing your property. So if you decide to move and you don't want to sell, if you're in a condo or if you're in a home with a HOA, you may not be able to lease your property. And if that is important to you, then you want to use that in your decision making. Governance and finance is another big part of HOAs. HOAs are built to govern the rules and regulations of the neighborhood so the neighbors can live together in peace and harmony, and they have a way of working through all the common property that they own, of maintaining and keeping it up to date and keeping it repaired. All those things are important. That costs money, that costs time, that costs volunteer time, and that also can increase headaches and stress on you, because the HOA may require you to do things that you don't want to do. If you don't want to live under the rules and regulations of HOA, then you're going to want to consider a home in a neighborhood that doesn't require an HOA. Another factor that can come into play with HOAs is pets. Not every HOA is going to allow you to have pets on your property, and that's for the common good of all the people living in the development. Now, if you want to have pets and you don't want to be told what to do, or you don't want to be told how many pets you can have or what type of pets you can have, you're definitely going to want to live in a single family home, and you're definitely going to want to live in one without an HOA. But regardless, if you're considering a townhome or a condo or a single family home with an HOA, you're going to want to look at their rules and regulations and see if they have anything that restricts you from having certain pets. And if it does, see if you can live with those rules. But just know the rules of an HOA can change at any time. It's based on a vote of how their bylaws are set up. So if you want to make sure that you can keep those over time, you're probably going to have to be involved with your HOA so you can maintain those rights that you have when you bought your property. I hope you enjoyed today's video on home buying. If you liked the video, click the like button to let me know that you enjoyed it. If you have any specific questions, leave them in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll never miss one of our videos. Take care.